So I just finished watching her the movie 2014 starring Joaquin Phoenix, and I think I have a lot to say, like a lot, a lot to say. Like I have my annotations in this like paper, but also in this paper it's filled with comments that I just had during the movie. And I will have and I will try also to like connect them in this video because I just need to get it out of my head because it was too much. It was too much, and I don't think the movie realizes that, which in a way is good, but we'll get into it. Okay. So I started watching this movie, especially like because I was very. Sometimes I feel like weird, like I'm not in my senses, like I just don't feel like being a human today. And watching movies or like engaging with any type of art really brings out the emotions out of me, like that human part out of me. And in that specific moment, I really needed that. Plus, I love Joaquin Phoenix. His acting is always amazing. And my best friend, Chata, she actually told me to watch it like a while back, while back. And I just put it in the back of my head. But actually, now that I'm in vacations, I'm using all this free time to basically watch all the movies that she has like recommended to me in a way. So I'm using my time wisely. And I saw it. I saw the movie because I really needed to and because it was a good opportunity basically. And it's funny how a movie that I needed to feel more human and in my emotions in that moment is so it takes a concept of being human and it starts like caressing it first, but then it crushes it and then it eats like it digests it does everything, and after it like poops the concept, it like eats it again, but then like the screen goes black and suddenly the concept of being human it's like untouched, and you're like, wait, didn't that guy just chew on it and threw it up and literally just did a bunch of things to it? And the movie's like, no, we never touch it, it has always stayed this way. So let me just start from the beginning because this sounds so abstract right now. I love sci-fi. It's probably one of my favorite genres out there. I have a lot of stories that really indulge in the sci-fi tropes and themes, like aliens, machines, genetics, time travel, universe, like the space in general. It's very fun. I love it. And one of the reasons why I love and look, because I'm always changing the reasons as to why I love the things that I love, and I know I don't need a reason to love what I love, but I like to think on why I love it, just as a fun exercise. And I always change the reasoning with sci-fi since I was like a kid. And one of the things that I really found interesting and that in my opinion that I'm now like challenging, in my opinion, I used to think that what made like a good sci-fi movie, comic, book, whatever, was the ability of the author, the writer, the director to really understand the human condition right now in with whatever time they wrote it, and based off on that predict how our own actions, ideologies, politics, society would evolve in a near or far future. I think that's very hard to get right, and it's very impressive when they do it right, because it shows how not only predictable we are, but how the story of our humanity like repeats itself, but also how things evolve with time, and how you can see early signs of how our future may be in our present. Now, of course, that's not the only thing that makes a sci-fi offer good, of course, but it's definitely a characteristic that I really appreciate. Now, with this movie, one of the first things that I like realized and I noticed is that for the first time, I'm pretty sure this is like the first time that in a movie of science fiction, I felt like this is not the future, right? This is just our reality. This is basically just what is happening right now, which is weird and it's kind of freaky, which is one of the reasons. Because I have a lot of reasons, but it's one of the reasons why I consider her not a love story, but a horror story. That shit scared the shit out of me. And I think it's so interesting because in no like moment of the movie, I think that was the intention to scare the viewer. So the fact that it actually scared me a lot, I don't know, it's interesting, but whatever. The point is that it just felt too familiar. I was watching it and I was like, of course some things are more like futuristic, for aesthetic wise, and like the cinematography is amazing. It's just beautiful. It's gorgeous. And let me just say, before we get into the real difficult, okay, before we get into the difficult stuff and complicated themes, I will talk about the easy things to cover that I really liked. I really liked the scene language, I like to call it, like how we know there's subtext in mostly every good story, but when you're watching like a movie, series, any like audio visual, um, form of entertainment or art, I think visual subtext is so important to make a good detailed, um, piece of work, because it can add so much to the experience of watching what a character is going through, what the world is going through in that scene, whatever, right? So I think the subtext, like the visual subtext, is amazing. The the one in the script, the one that is told, not told, you know what I mean, in the story is interesting, but we'll get there. Also, I really like the color palettes. I love how they play with color and contrast and the backgrounds. It was so consistent throughout the whole movie. That was great. And it's good we're talking about consistency because that gets a little bit lost later on in the story. I really liked Joaquin's performance, and I know this is gonna sound like I'm lying, but I swear to God, I don't know what I don't know what was going through my brain when I started watching the movie. I think I was so out of my mind and out of my feelings that I didn't recognize that it was Chris Pratt, the office friend that Theodore had. I don't know how I did not see him. He had like one of the most obnoxiously familiar faces ever. And I don't know if that's like I can credit that to good acting. Chris Pratt making a good being a good actor is kind of weird to hear. Like, so I don't know. I don't know what was it, but anyways, even he, I think he did a good job in the role. Not gonna lie. Yeah, I think the acting of everyone was pretty good. Especially, I think it's Scarlett Johansson. Johansson? Yeah, yes. I don't know. That made the voice of Samantha. We'll get there. I think it was pretty good for a character that's only the voice. That was great, right? So I really like that. And I think that's yeah, and I really liked the female characters. This is like entering a little bit into the zone of the more like complex themes I'm gonna get into, but it's just like a quick thing that I'm saying right now so I can expand on it later. You understand? So, yeah. I think a question where we can start to unpack this whole mess. And again, I don't remember who said this, but the word mess doesn't have to be negative. It's just a lot of information. But a place where we can start to unpack this is one like idea that was very constant in my mind while watching it, and is that according to one of my classmates that watched the movie, said that the movie was very misogynistic and that either you loved it or you hated it. So I was very interested in that. I love movies that are marketed by other people by saying like either you love it or hate it. That's how I know I'm gonna have a fun time analyzing it. And before I can say if I loved it or hate it, let's answer the misogynistic part. So something I'll give the movie like props to is that there's like a variety of female characters that feel very like independent as people. And when I say independent, I don't mean like the character is like an independent woman. Some of them are, but I mean like they have unique characteristics to each one of them that they do feel like different people, and they feel like they have different opinions, they have different life experiences that really shine through in their dialogue. I think that it's very important that even if they appear on screen for like less than 10 minutes, I think it's important to have them have names, show a little bit of their personality, and not just be like a throwaway female character to only have one purpose for the male protagonist, which it's kind of a problem. I'm not gonna lie. I do feel like most of them, they do feel like they're there in the story to help to I guess make theater think, reflect, change, grow, but they for the most part stay the same. And I get it, he's a protagonist, but I couldn't help but notice that even Samantha, all the women, all the women in the movie feel like their sole purpose is to serve something for Fyodor's arc, which you could technically argue is kind of the whole point of any supporting character in any movie, but I don't think that's necessary. Um, I think that if you don't want other characters to be protagonists, but you also don't want them to feel like they're just helping the protagonist reach some conclusion, analysis, realization of themselves. If you don't want them to just feel like that, then but also don't want to give them such a big part in the movie, then I think you could like be there to show the audience like the type of person that the protagonist is, just showcasing things about the protagonists that were already there, just as any normal interaction between two persons would. Like, how do they respond to this dialogue, how do they this to that, blah, 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 while also giving like, again, even if they don't appear a lot, giving them personality, which again the movie did a good job with doing that. But I do see where the people come from when they say that it could be misogynistic by that like point of view. But I know that most people want to hear about Samantha and how she may be like the reason why a lot of people call it a misogynistic movie. This is very complicated because, for one, in one side, I'm like, yes, Samantha, like her existence shows how Fyodor doesn't really engage with the real human feelings of his now ex-wife, and how like he it's pretty clear, right, how Fyodor needed that um woman of his dreams that has this like childlike wonder, and it's always happy and it's like laughing, and the only moments she gets mad or angry is because she's jealous because he's seeing other people. And she's Samantha is usually sad, especially around the end of the movie, because of things that have to be that are like related directly to theater. I don't have a body to hug you. I cannot be with you because I don't have a body. I want our like relationship to work. But again, it's very complex because I like that the movie gives a sense of kind of I'm searching for a word. Authority? No, just an independent feeling to the character, to of all the female characters. And with Samantha, it's like we do see she has her own like wants and needs that don't have a lot to do with Fyodor, like her wanting to know more about the world, her being proud about um, knowing that she has complex feelings and that she can feel it. Now, right now, if you notice, I'm talking about Samantha like another character of the movie, but she's actually a big problem that I have like right now mentally, because she's not real. She's like an AI thingy. And yeah, I know those words AI trigger me so bad. But we'll talk about that later in the science fiction, more centered part of the analysis, I guess. Right now, it is more the misogynistic part, right? So yeah, she feels like enough of her own person to don't seem like her world goes around. It's like roaming around Fyodor, but it's like dependent enough on him for him to feel wanted and needed. You know what I mean? So basically, the perfect woman. Which, yeah, at the end, they basically tell us like he grew up after she left, which I have a problem with that ending. We'll go there. Um, he grew up, he apologized, he he saw life from another perspective or whatever, with that final shot of him looking at the city, which is nice. I like the shot. But that's a thing of a lot of movies that they show at the end, like this meaningful resolution, but they spent the whole movie showing us another thing. An example is Wakanda Forever. How at the end of the movie they try to be like, hey guys, you can see how when minorities team up together, we can actually fight the big bad wolf that is like the white imperialist system, basically. Which is, yeah, like it's a nice conclusion, but then you see the whole movie, them literally the 90% of the movie is just them fighting, while the big bad wolf is just looking at them, seeing these minorities fight. So I think the message gets a little bit like lost. It's the same thing here with the movie, I think, because yeah, at the end he learns that, which I could interpret it different, right? Like he learns about he's enough to himself, and how, this woman he was so infatuated with, at the end of the day, she couldn't be like anything that looks too good to be true. um it probably is fake, right? So I think that's low-key the conclusion of the movie, um at least the first superficial one. But again, we have a whole moment in the movie or he's like, as long as I'm happy, right? And Amy's like, yeah, as long as you're happy, who cares if it's not considered real or whatever, you're happy. We have such a short life. We want to be happy or whatever. Your ex-wife was the one that had like emotional problems, not Samantha. So it's like, a little late in the story to tell us this resolution, but yeah, examining that, I think it's interesting seeing how a lot of men have these weird complicated relationships with AI, with fake bots, with all this machine learning that are especially like characterized as women, because it's all they want, a woman that knows it all, follows his orders, shut up when he wants, talks to him when he wants, exists in such a small space where he can feel the control um that he wants in a real woman, you know? So I think it's kind of shown in here, but also, and I think that's one of the things I really like about the movie. Um, Fyodor is a very complex character. He is, and I hate to admit it, but he may be entering my kin list. Yes, I kin him. Shut up. But like, I, yeah, he is like someone doesn't understand and probably is kind of scared. The movie says it about real feelings of another woman. I'm gonna talk about that later. Put a pinpoint in that. Um, but also they establish from early on that he's a very lonely person, especially after the breakup. Even though they haven't been divorced by that point in the story, they still like are like broken up or whatever. He's a very lonely person, and I can sense that he knows that part of him being so in love with this machine, like in the first part of the movie, is crazy. But you can see how he doesn't give a shit because he's just too lonely, and the world in which he lives in is too postmodern, crazy, and fake in a way, that he doesn't care, he doesn't care about Samantha being fake. So in a weird way, I don't know, I find that interesting, and I find that very humanizing for Fyodor, right? He's just not just another wannabe manipulative boyfriend that wants a bot girl that follows his orders. No, like he's a lonely soul that kind of is on the fence about treating Samantha like this very friendly bot or a valid relationship. So I got off the rails a bit. But to answer the question, is this movie misogynistic or not? I'd have to say it definitely has some tropes and some underlying issues with it. If you see the structure of the movie, just like the skeleton, it definitely plays on a lot of misogynistic tropes and structures whilst trying to not fall into them, and also whilst trying to criticize them at the end a little too quickly. So I'd say 70-30, you know, something like that. But okay, now talking about what I put the pinpoint in about Fyodor being lonely and all that stuff, right? Like, I actually think from what the movie shows us, like he had valid reasons to break up with her, and like I appreciate the movie trying to be like, you know, he didn't know how to handle these emotions and this realness of this woman. But for what we see in the movie, again, they grow up together, and I relate to this a lot. You're growing up with someone you love so much, but it gets to a point where y'all are going hand in hand, and suddenly you feel like you're in another maturity level than the other person, and you feel like instead of walking alongside them and looking like directly at eye level at them, you're starting to look down, and you're trying to put yourself lower too, kind of like to be at the same level at them. um but it just doesn't work out like that, because you gotta keep growing too. Um, Everyone has to at their own pace, and it's okay if that person you're like leaving behind is not growing up at the same time as you as y'all were doing, because at some point either they're gonna grow up at their own time, or probably they're gonna stay there, and it's fine. But don't let that drag you down too. And the movie, I think, makes it kind of clear that that was kind of the case with them. um and maybe, of course, this could be like read a little shitty, but maybe that was like showcased in how what was the name of the fucking girlfriend, bro? No. um oh, okay, found her name. Catherine. So I think it's showcased like how he feels that he's growing at a different pace than her, as Catherine being like over emotional and kind of like taking everything personal. I think that's how the movie framed it a little bit, which is this is confusing because the movie frames it that way especially at the in the moment where they're like signing the divorce papers, that she starts getting a little defensive and weird, and he keeps repeating how they grew up at some point at different paces. But then at the end of the movie, it shows like how the real reason why they broke up is because he couldn't handle real emotions. And I'll tell you why I think this is weird. Because if I say it like that, it makes sense. You know, he couldn't handle how over emotional she was, and kind of the movie at the end validates her emotions, being like, those are real emotions that you should um, try to understand if you want to be in a relationship with a real human person. But here comes one of my problems in how the female characters are characterized in this movie. All these women, when I say women, we're not talking about Samantha because she's a AI, but all these women are very smart. They're very interesting, funny, unique, smart people, and they make very good points. And for example, I don't remember her name, I'm so sorry, but the girl Fyodor went on a date with, she she was cool, she was nice, there was some chemistry. But then she asked Fyodor like, "Hey, after we hook up, you're not going to be like another one of those guys that don't like call me back or anything, right? Because I'm searching for like a serious relationship," which is super valid. And that's one of the main reasons why people go out on dates in the first place, right? People have talked about how annoying like hookup culture is. So her making her needs being heard before they're gonna do anything else, it's super valid. And Fyodor, because we know how he is, he's like, well, we should call it a night, basically. And of course, she is like kind of heartbroken because it's like like you at no point had an interest of pursuing like a serious relationship with me. You're just going out for fun, I guess, and then tell me you want to do all these things, but then be like, no, I'm not interested. Of course, you would feel heartbroken. Um, and I was on her side, I was understanding her a lot. But then she out of nowhere is just like, no, no, Peter, you are a creep. You're a creepy dude. And she looks like terrified and like runs away. And I'm like, where did that come from? That was so out of nowhere, right? Like there was no reason for her to do that. It was so out of nowhere. And I was very confused. I was trying to think like what was the point? What was the point? But then I saw that it was like a pattern with some female characters that were like in a way, let's say, challenging Fyodor, and not in a snaky kind of way like, oh really, no, in like actually just saying what they want, being who they are, and that interferes with Fyodor's like status quo that may or may not be a little um unfinished, unchallenged, insecure, whatever. So valid challenge, Jing discourse. And the second case where this happens is again in the scene with the divorce papers with Catherine, and she's like, "Oh, so have you been seeing anyone like these past months?" And he's like, "Yeah, actually, I'm seeing this girl called Samantha," and he says how she's in the movie calls it OS, I think. And of course Catherine is like, whoa, what the fuck, right? And she's like the first person we see in the movie being like um surprised or kind of like offended, I guess, or kind of like just confused basically because his friend, I have the name here, hold up, Amy, Amy and Chris Pratt, they're like, okay, cool, as long as you're happy. So he has like the, I guess, the okay from his friends. But we see that Catherine is like, so you cannot handle my real emotions, so you go running after a computer. Of course, her dialogue was way better, and she did such like good points. Like she was spitting facts, and I was like, yeah, she's right, exactly. This is gonna make Theodore think. But then again, this shit happened again, where the waitress is coming to their table and is like, "Oh, can I get you anything else?" And for some reason, Catherine just turns to the waitress and is like, "Well, actually, my now ex-husband is seeing a computer instead of me because he can handle real feelings. So how about that?" And I was like, "Girl, what are you doing? Why are you telling this to the waitress? She's just doing her job." And it was so random. And the guy Fyodor was to start telling the the waitress like, if you knew the whole context, it would be so different. It is like, why are you guys yelling at the waitress? Of course it was a funny moment, it was funny, but it happened again where the woman is making good points that actually are telling basically Fyodor like, get your shit together. Are you being for real? And then they say or do something crazy that makes them look like the crazy one. And now you feel like that was so unnecessary, right? So yeah, that adds a point to this movie maybe a little misogynistic, right? But anyway, I needed to rant about that. But now that we talked about those characters, that doesn't happen with Amy. Amy is always on Peter's side, you know. She's like the cool friend that has Peter's back, and she doesn't get any of those moments where she says something super crazy that makes us go, wow, she really is weird. Like just moments where we're like, oh, she's weird, but like in a fun way because she's a little, I don't know, perverted or like quirky, but it's seen in like a positive light. You feel me? And of course, it's the one person that agrees with Theodore and supports him. So I don't want to call her pick me because she's not really a pick me, but it's just an eyebrow raiser for me. Like she's the only one that isn't like shown in a bad light. Um, because she's agreeing with Theodore all the time. And again, because I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to this movie, I was like, maybe this is like how Theodore like saw the interaction, and actually it wasn't like that. But that's giving way too much credit to the movie, and honestly, it's not that type of film. It's pretty straightforward, a romantic sci-fi film. So now, finally, we can get to my favorite part because I hate the romance part was okay, I guess, but it's just not my thing. My thing is the science fiction part, and I have so much to rant about. So, this part, I want to combine my political analysis with my science fiction analysis. And I have a lot of questions that I brought down, right? As I was watching. I will read them for you right now. Can a machine truly change a person? That's a question that I put. How can you write a pro human movie about AI in a neoliberal society that's so anti humans. Now, the movie started doing a juxtaposition that I thought it was brilliant. That I thought this is going somewhere where he's like writing all these letters, right? Um, because his company is basically, hey, I want to write a letter to my grandma, but I'm not good with words, so I go to the company in which Theodore works at, and I'm like, hey, it's not very specific on how it works, but it's basically like, can you make like a letter to my grandma that has this detail, and her name is blah blah blah, whatever. So you see Theodore in his office, basically writing the letter to this random guy's grandma. That's the premise of his work, and he's very good at it. He's a very good writer. And there was a point where I saw like a shimmer of a comparison that the movie was trying to make, right? Because of course I'm gonna react to media based on my social political climate that I lived in and I live in. And right now, with all this talk about AI and you know artificial intelligence, God, of course I'm gonna interact with this movie in what I know and my opinions about it and my knowledge about it, of course. So I was trying to figure out something. There was a question that was lingering in my mind all the time. Is this movie pro human or not? Now, that may sound weird, but that's what's fun. That this question can have like a lot of answers and interpretations. Because pro human in the way of AI is actually like this very bad capitalistic weird fantasy about advanced technology that can surpass humans, and we are critical about that, and we are appreciative of actual humans type of way, or pro human in the way of you know you can only make true real connections with another human, and this weird technology will never understand you the way a real human will, or pro human in the way that it's like again I was thinking of this on how the movie would like tell us their opinions. Third option, or pro human in the way of AI is beautiful because humans made it. And so many humans work in this now thing that we call Samantha, that is a little piece of every developer. So, kind of like a love letter to technology and to humans. So I was very curious about that, on which lens they were gonna like um take or explore basically. And there is this part, this very important part that makes me think about this juxtaposition with Theodore's work, their job, his job, at the letter thingy, and with Samantha, the AI, um, where Chris Pratt tells Peter like, "Hey, you're such a good writer. Like, I wish." I don't remember if he goes like, "I wish people would send me letters like that," or if I could write. I think I wish someone would send me a letter like that. And Peter is like, "Yeah, yeah, thank you, thank you." And as he's leaving the office, he thinks about something, and he turns around and says, "They're just other people's letters." And the scene, of course, changes. Now that seems like such an insignificant line, but it actually made me think a lot about, wait, is the movie being like critical about how, like, at the end of the day, because even if I don't fully agree with this, maybe the movie was trying to say, like, the same way Samantha, her dialogue, her emotions, what she thinks, how she reacts to stuff, that the same way that was made from other humans. So she's technically real because she comes from other humans. It's the same thing with these letters that Theodore like makes. Like, the other person that is receiving the letter thinks that their loved one did it, but it was this other person in the equation, you know? So is a movie trying to make like this comparison between Samantha and Theodore, and like explore how both of them like aren't being like fully genuine of where the words are coming from, where the creativity is coming from. Like, there's more people that are in that equation. I thought that was gonna be such an interesting like thing to unpack in the movie. But again, since we have to put all the 2 hours, because the movie's 2 hours, we gotta put all those minutes into pointless romance. I'm sorry, but romance do be ruining great movies. That's just the truth. I don't care. Go argue with the wall. This is my channel. Now, I have some very intense thoughts that when I got it in my head, I was like, yo, yo, yo. I had to pause the movie and I had to be like, that's it. That's it. But before we get there, I want to talk still about a lighthearted note about the technology. Now, with these technologies, something that makes me mad is how movies, TV shows, whatever, use these very cool ideas of technology, mostly for two reasons. One, to be like super cool and give advantages to humans that otherwise they wouldn't have, just for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it, which is not bad, is not bad, but if that's the whole reason and you don't explore deeper on it, then I'm gonna be disappointed. It's either that or to scare people. That's usually one of those two things. And with her, that's not an exception. In this case, it was the first one. Just to be like, oh, this is so cool and weird. And it's almost like it's not technology. It's almost like it's another person. She made it possible that he gets like a whole book printed with his letters. I still don't know how to feel about that. Whatever. But it didn't feel like technology. One of the things I love about technology is how, like, when you look at it for a little too long, you start seeing, like, how just human and weird and tacky and awfully interesting it is, right? And it would be cool to show how she. Okay, hold on, because if you have seen it, you'll see. But that's actually. Wait. It would be cool to show all her new updates and how she gets some things wrong, just to make it feel like technology. But again, maybe that's the whole point, that she feels so far from technology that you can justify her being like a potential girlfriend for Fyodor. Yeah, maybe that's the whole point. But when I say stuff like that, I mean, like, I want to see a little bit of more world building, which this is just me being petty because this has nothing to do with the story. That's why I said a lighthearted note. Like, um, I don't know. If you have like a malfunction with your AI, like, how does that look? Who do you call? And I mentioned this because no, actually, this is important to the story. Around the end, something very weird happens. She starts being like, "Oh, I'm having so much problems right now. Like I'm having a lot of complicated emotions, Fyodor. I'm so sorry." And of course, he's like weirded out. He's like, "Yo, are you okay? What's going on?" Right? And she's like, "I'm sorry, I need some time to myself or whatever." And then we cut a little, like it happens like 5 minutes later. We have this scene again. One of the reasons why Keen Fyodor, he's reading this big ass physics book. He know damn well he won't finish it, but he's starting it anyway, which is such a me thing to do. And he goes, "Samantha, this is so difficult to read, holy shit." But she doesn't respond. So he's like, Samantha, what's going on?" He starts freaking the fuck out, which I like this scene because he goes ape shit, which kind of like sets up his resolution at the end of how, more than being happy with her, he was developing this weird obsession and necessity to be like all the time with her. So I appreciate that moment. But then and he like he is running around and he sits down, right? And he's like, "Oh, Samantha, finally." She's like, "What happened? Oh my god, you sound so worried. Did I scare you? I'm sorry. We were having like an update or something." And he's sitting like in the stairs of the beginning, like when you're going to enter the subway, and there's a lot of people entering, and there's a lot of people, and he's just sitting like in the stairs. And she basically says um that she and other like um AIs were having updates and whatever. And Fyodor asks like, "Yo, am I the only person that you talk to?" And she's like, "No, like there's a lot of people." She gives like this biggest number. And that's one of the things I mean about like the text of the visuals of the scene, of how the moment she says like how many people she's talking to at that precise moment, you really feel it because everyone is walking in the stairs where he's like just sitting, so like an obstacle, just crouching and crying like an addict, because in a way he got like addicted to Samantha. That's kind of the things I am talking about the scene language. I love that. But she's like, "Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people and I'm having like different conversations." He's like, "Are you in love with other people?" And she's like, "Yeah, like 600 something, right?" And he of course is destroyed. Now, I was like, this is a good twist. I like this because it shows how, again, this could have not worked. Put a pin on that because I'm gonna talk about the working or not working in a bit. This could have not worked. And of course, she was gonna be talking to other people. Like, such a high, like, such a well developed system just for a single person would be a waste. If it's so smart and intelligent, of course it's gonna be talking to a lot of people. That makes so much sense. And of course it's gonna have different relationships with each user, right? That makes so much sense. But then, and this makes me so mad, I was like, please don't tell me the movie's gonna end this way. She's like, "Fyodor, I gotta leave. I need to leave." And he's like, "Why? What?" She never tells why she gotta leave. Never. Never. She just gotta leave. She gives like her own monologue about infinity and space and ugh. I'm sorry, but I couldn't engage. I could not engage because I wanted to be sad and I was just confused. So I was like, wait, but what's happening? Are they shutting the system down? Did something happen at the company? Tell me what's going on so I can feel something. Because one of the things that I would have liked, because, okay, so they're shutting everything down, whatever. There's this scene. This movie does something where it set up different things, different themes, different things that it's gonna supposedly, as the audience, think it's gonna explore later, but then it never does. It doesn't do it. And if it does it very vaguely, and it doesn't explore it. You cannot even call it exploration. And that's a thing that happens a lot in this movie. Set up for something that we could talk about later, we don't talk about it. And again, this happened once again because they were having a picnic. Chris Pratt, his girlfriend, which she's such a hot, beautiful woman. Let me just say that. And she's a lawyer. Y'all know how I feel about lawyers. But anyways, it's them and Samantha and Fyodor. It's the four of them. Four, whatever. Um, and Samantha, I don't remember how it came up, but Samantha says like, I was kind of sad that I didn't have a body, but now I'm starting to feel a little happy because it means that I'm gonna be here like for a long time, and I won't have to see like my body die, like a human mortal body. And of course, that makes everyone super uncomfortable. Even Chris Pratt is like, yikes. And she's like, oh my god, no, sorry, I did not mean to say it that way. Whatever. That could have been like the way I want it to be. This is so personal that it doesn't have a lot to be, a lot to do about how good or bad the conversation for the setup was. But the way I wanted that to be is to show, because again, sci-fi technology, to show how technology is low key forever and it will outlive us. And that's scary. This movie is scary, bro. I swear to God, this movie is so scary. And how that's another reason why it wouldn't work out with Fyodor. Again, it set up something and it didn't go with it. What did it not go with it this time? Not only the picnic scene, but how one of the main factors about Fyodor's relationship with Catherine is that they grew up together and they were at different places in their life, in their maturing process. That could never be the case with an AI because technology is forever. Because technology, instead of going for experiences, they learn from trial and error in such a mechanical, weird way. And if it's not that way, it's by an update. And if it's not that way, you shut it down and you make another better, prettier, more advanced one. That's not how humans work. And that's one of the reasons why it wouldn't work, right? And it would be kind of beautiful and dramatic and poetic, like, I will live on forever, but you're gonna die. They could have had that talk after the picnic and it would be so dramatic and it would be good. But no, the setup was there. It was going for this great back and forth for them. But instead, they decided to wrap up the movie and be like, no, actually, she's shutting down for no reason. She's just shutting down. And all the AIs are too. What? What does that even say about anything? That's stupid. And then that's where, he goes and writes a letter to Catherine, and he's like, yeah, I fucked up. I apologize. But I already talked about that. So I was so disappointed. That ending was trash, man. God. But anyways, now that we have that out of the way, we still aren't going to the big revelation. That's for the end. Maybe I'm hyping it up a little too much. But for me, it was great to know it. now I'm gonna talk because I'm going from least important to most important to me ideas about this movie. The I guess ninth idea from the 10 ideas that I have. It's not 10. It's just like a comparison, whatever. Um, is these questions that I was making my to myself as I was watching this. The same way I was asking me like this question with different alternatives at the beginning about how was this gonna be pro-human, because it can be pro-human in their own way, the movie, like in different ways. I was asking the same question when he had this conversation with fucking girl, I'm forgetting all this fucking names, Amy, and he was like, yeah, it's an AI, and she was like, no, that's fine, that's as long as you're happy because this life is so short, right? I was asking different questions like, is is this so bad, right? Because he's being happy um in a way that the postmodern person is happy uh, for the sake of being happy, because the world is basically fucked. Everything is so complicated. We don't have enough energy to care for each other's. We don't have enough energy to care about us, let alone other people. So a lot of this postmodern like mentality is fuck it, I'll be happy in my own terms and I don't care. I don't care about the world around me. I just care about my happiness because that's the only thing I can afford to care about, basically. So I was asking myself, is that gonna be the angle they're gonna go like through to um kind of continue the movie, being like, yep, he knows she's a machine, but he's happy. And I was starting to, you know, okay, I'm starting to accept it. We live in a weird world, and he's not hurting anyone. Okay, it could be it. Um, but then, um, because the reason why he talked to Amy about this was because in remember when Catherine was like, "You're talking to a computer. She's not real." After that, he had like a weird crisis where he was like, "What's real? What's fake? Blah 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 blah," and he was being very like dry towards Samantha, and she noticed it because of course she noticed it. And she was like, "Is everything okay? What's going on?" There was a whole scene that I don't even know if I want to mention it because yeah, it's important to understand Samantha and her limitations as an AI, but it's so cringy. I'm gonna say it super fast so we can continue. She basically like talks to this person, real person, that and she tells her about her relationship with Theodore and how she wants to basically she wants to fuck Theodore, and so she tells her like, I'm gonna talk through you and tell you what to do, so what I want to do, but through your body because I want to be able to fuck him IRL so bad. Shit goes south, he can't get into it because obviously that's fucked up. The whole idea is fucked up. And Isabella, the name of the girl is Isabella, ends up crying. It's a whole deal. So this combined with him being like confused and over the fence of if she's real or not, they had like a weird like um you know, when they're angry at each other but they don't haven't had like the big fight. Yeah, in that moment. So now we can go to the present, where Fyodor, has the talk with Amy, and she's like, "No, you're good. Like, you need to be happy." After that, he starts talking again with Samantha, and here is when I asked my questions, my multiple questions, like, is he when he comes back to talk to Samantha? Is he doing it out of ignorance, blissful ignorance about the fact that she's not real? One, two, sheer loneliness and falling into that like cycle of I need someone to talk to and I don't care if it's real or not. I just don't want to be lonely. Or free about that like happiness in the postmodernist world that I was talking about. Like that happiness because I want to be happy, and like I don't care about anything else because I'm lonely, or because I just want this blissful ignorance, basically. Which again are topics that would be so interesting to see the movie go through. But instead I think it's more like um it's more shown in a because to him she's real and the feelings are real way, because again this is a romance, but that breaks so much nuance to the conversation, and it just takes away from that like aspect of complexity that I know theater has, right? But anyway, now that we have that out of the way, we can finally talk about what felt so weird about this movie to me the whole time. Y'all ready for this? This movie can't work and will never work in the real world, neither as a romance or as a sci fi movie, because this is a neoliberal fantasy. What I mean by that is where this new independent unregulated technology is so good, it's so advanced, it doesn't have any troubles, there's not a real threat to it, there's not a real like yeah threat to engaging with it in such passionate real emotional ways, that really the only thing that it's getting between like Samantha and Fyodor, according to the movie, is just like her, let's be honest, not having like a body. And I know that's not true. There's so many things can that are in like in between them that could make them never work, because of course, but the only obstacle that the movie shows us is like she cannot have a body, and sure she's talking to a million other people, but even that, the movie tells us that that was pretty recent, that she started talking to a lot of people, like after they started dating, in such a consistent way, where Fyodor was like, I don't care anymore, I just want to be with you. Which doesn't make sense, because the plot twist would be way better if we learned that she was talking to other people since the beginning, because then it doesn't make sense that in some point the developers were like, now you're gonna talk to these other 1,000 people. That doesn't make any sense. So the plot twist kind of fell for me, not knowing that. But um yeah, like apart from that, everything is perfect, everything is fine, there's no awkward technology aspects to Samantha other than not having a body. There's no complications other than not having a body and the social stigma. There's no thing other than a body that differentiates her from a real human. And that was making me scared for our reality. What if that becomes the reality one day? What if that actually happens? And then all my pro human beliefs fall flat. That's when I that's when I fought and I realized that's not gonna happen because that's a fantasy that neoliberals want to sell you. Basically, such a fake yet real reality with the metaverse, with NFTs, with all this shit, all this AI, as good as the real thing. That's a fantasy they're gonna sell you. But we all know nothing can replace humans. That was my review. That was my analysis of her 2013. The movie's pretty good, don't get me wrong, but it made me think a lot, as you can see. So, yeah, thank you for watching. If you did it for some reason, I don't know what would you watch this whole thing, but if you did, thank you. Again, as I say in every end of my videos, follow me on Instagram at Broken Bones. I deleted Twitter, so don't even try searching because you will find weird replies that people had at me, did at me when I had Twitter. Whatever. Goodbye. See ya.